When I opened my phone this morning to check my notifications, I saw a comment from someone on one of my TikTok videos who was asking if I had any tips on being a church drummer. And what I would say is if you want to be a good church drummer, you need to be a good worship drummer. And the TikTok length answer to being a good worship drummer is you need to be continually improving yourself in your worship, and you need to be continually improving yourself in your drumming. And that seems painfully obvious, but it's completely true. You can have the most clean and upright life, completely dedicated to God, but not know how to play the drums, and you wouldn't make a good worship drummer. And you can also be the best drummer in the world, but not believe in God and not want to worship, and you would not make a good worship drummer either. So these two things really need to come hand in hand. The first thing about being a good worship drummer is you need to have a heart of worship, because that's what you're trying to do, I hope. You're trying to convey your worship to God through the craft and the instrument that you love. If you're not worshiping through every aspect of your life, it's going to show in your drumming. And I think the drums in particular, they are just so transparent of the player's personality and emotions and feelings. And worship is no different. So if your life is not right, when you get behind the kit on Sunday, it's not going to suddenly become any better. I know there are some churches where they might hire musicians in to play for the service, but I would still say it applies to at least a limited degree, even if you don't actually believe in anything the church is doing and you're just there to fulfill a job and play the music. There's still an extent where you would want to understand at least what the lyrics are talking about, and I think this applies to any genre. If I'm playing a pop gig and the song is really happy and upbeat, I'm probably not going to put a super aggressive drum part on it. Or if the song is very ambient and moody and emotive, a slow ballad, it wouldn't make sense to play an upbeat kind of drum part. So I would think no matter what the genre, it's still important to at least understand the message that the song you're playing to is trying to carry across. And that's another important thing to take note of as a worship drummer. Next, we come to the part about being a good drummer and increasing in your capabilities as a drummer in church. That doesn't mean you need to be the best drummer in the world. I'm definitely not anywhere near that. But to be a good church drummer or worship drummer, what you need is enough technical skills to be proficient in this particular genre. So if your aim is to be a good church drummer, you probably don't need 250 BPM blast beats. But you will need to have your single strokes at a pretty decent rate and be able to control your accents and dynamics, things like that. So you basically just need to be able to play what is necessary for your genre of choice. Now, I want to address this issue that many church musicians have, which is where they play by ear or they play by feel, and sometimes use that as an excuse not to progress in their skills. Now, this is a very touchy thing because you can be a really good musician if you play just by ear and you don't know how to read notes, and I have another video that talks about this. Recently, I watched a video by this pianist. I'll put a link up here somewhere, and he explains this really well. It's in the context of chord-based music theory, but I feel like a lot of the concepts he was talking about make sense, especially the one where he talks about how it's not exactly your ear that you need to train, but your vocabulary that you need to expand. Most of us don't have a hearing problem, but if our vocabulary is limited, it's going to limit what we can understand of the music. Let me try and rephrase this a bit. You can only comprehend what you're hearing if it is something you already understand. That means you can only make sense of what you're hearing in the music if you already possess the vocabulary to process what it is. 如果你听不懂华语，你就完全不知道我在讲什么。So what I was saying is that if you don't understand Chinese, you'll have no idea what I just said. And it's not a problem with your ear. You could hear what was being said, but you don't understand it because you don't understand the language. You would not be able to repeat the exact same thing. You would not even be able to paraphrase the gist of what was being said. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of church musicians who have a limited vocabulary and continue to play by ear end up just playing the same things over and over again, and they don't even realize that it's not appropriate to the song because they can't hear exactly what is going on in the music because they haven't expanded their vocabulary enough. So my second point for being a good drummer in church is you need to work on your vocabulary, and that means you need to learn more songs, you need to actually analyze beats, and pay attention to the details in what is going on in the music. That is exactly why I make the videos that I do, transcribing more or less note for note what the original drum part was. Not because I want people to play that exact part on the song, but because I want people to understand what was going on in that song, what was the original drummer doing, and then the next time they hear something similar to it, they'll already have a reference point because they started to build an understanding of the vocabulary that was going on in that song. Besides vocabulary, what other characteristics does church drumming have that other genres might not have? I would say one other characteristic is that church musicians need to be very adaptable to changes in the song. That's because in a service, the worship leader might call a second chorus, or we might take the same song and interpret it differently in different contexts when a service has different moods. And as a musician, you want to be able to respond appropriately to be able to carry that atmosphere with your music and your playing. So the first thing is you need to be very aware of the structure of a song. Learning a song A to Z, even if you're technically 100% proficient, is not going to help you when we repeat a section one more time and you have no idea where you are in the music because you didn't take note of what sections you were in. Or if the vocalist comes in a bar early, you know it happens. If you're having a 8-bar interlude and the singer comes in on bar 6, you have to adapt. You can't just force your way into 2 more bars and then just hope everything magically works out after that. When you're learning songs, you need to pay special attention to the structure of the song. Just practice a verse, practice a chorus, and be very aware of what parts are going on in each section so that even if they were shuffled around, you won't get completely lost. You also need to pay attention to what is going on in the music, because that's what you need to listen to in order to figure out why a certain part is being played on the drums. My advice to anyone learning drums, especially from sheet music, is always to just listen to the song and try and listen to everything that is not the drums, because that's going to give you a clue to why the original drummer chose to play whatever it was they were playing in a response to something that was happening in the music. And that is so much more useful than just learning a part by itself, because when you're playing on stage, you want to be able to respond appropriately to what other musicians in the band are playing. Finally, the last unique characteristic about worship drumming and church drummers that doesn't happen for other genres is that you actually want to be able to worship while you're playing. And what that means is you cannot afford to be thinking about technicalities while you're behind the kit during the service playing. You don't want to be maxing out your brain just thinking about what hand hits what and what part of the song comes next. So that means when you practice, you can't be content with just having your skill level at the level of the song. You need to go way beyond that so that whenever you're playing on stage, you don't have to think about what you're doing at all, and you can just focus on whatever is happening in the service. You can pray for the congregation, you can be speaking to God and ministering through your instrument and truly worshiping while you're playing the drums. That's all I have for you guys today on some quick tips and my thoughts on what it means to be a good worship drummer. I might do a follow-up video to this sometime in future with a couple more concrete tips, but meanwhile, I hope this was useful to you. Share it to any worship drummers that you think might benefit from this. Have an awesome day and happy drumming. See ya. That was the fastest video I've ever recorded without retakes. I better go get ready for my lesson now.